Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm just talking about something boring, politics. But this year's presidential race is actually kind of interesting. It's the most exciting that I've seen it. A few people were asking me who I'm voting for, so I thought I would explain my political views. Now, before I begin, maybe some of you guys can guess who I'm voting for or who I already voted for. I vote for peace, so that's a good hint right there. I really appreciate you guys for watching this video. If you unsubscribe, hey, I don't care. I just wanted to share my opinions, my beliefs. What's important is that you vote for peace. Remember, politics is the ultimate distraction. It divides people, creates disunity, and people need to remember that spirituality is what's important. The money from these corporations corrupts candidates because they need to continue to get this money for the next election even. The money corrupts, and I was raised a religion that holds elections. There's no clergy, no priest in the Baha'i faith, but they hold elections, and it's one of the major precedences that there's no campaigning allowed. There's no advertising that you're running for an election because they recognize that the money corrupts. The elections, people get elected by word of mouth, by their community reputation, by doing good deeds and community service and things like this. Also, the religion that I believe in says that you shouldn't get involved with political parties, that you shouldn't be affiliated with political parties because, this political system polarizes and divides Americans. It creates disunity, disharmony, and it distracts us from our spiritual pursuits, right? So it's not good, but it's important that you vote, and it's important that you educate yourself, pay attention to issues. Let's talk about these candidates. We got Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton. And first, before I really begin, I'd like to show you my impression of the archetype of the supporters of each of these candidates. Just a generalization. So, first we'll begin with Hillary Clinton. Here's what her typical supporter sounds like. Yeah, I guess Hillary is qualified enough for the job, and well, it'd be good to have a woman as president for once. Now, here's the Bernie Sanders supporter. Finally, a politician who is honest, has integrity, and who really cares about the well-being of us common citizens, who has really good ideas for positive change. I feel so inspired. I'm going to go volunteer. Now, the Donald Trump supporter. Finally, there's a candidate who's as angry and pissed off and hateful as I am. Who wants to have a beer? Right? So let's begin with Donald Trump, which, honestly, he's part of the reason why this is so entertaining. He's the guy that you love to hate. And the American media loves him because he's entertaining. And the news, the news is for entertainment. That's why they love giving Donald Trump so much airtime. Donald Trump, he says he's worth $11 billion. $3 billion of that is his brand name, okay? So this is a reality TV star who has never held political office, right? Who his brand is almost a third of his worth, right? So for him, his running for president is just a continuation of his publicity, of his reality TV show. It's a new reality TV show for Trump. It's Donald Trump runs for president. And it's a win-win situation. If he loses, he still gets a reality TV show after he loses. If he wins, well, then he gets to do the ultimate in his legacy. He's already one of the richest people in the world, right? The only thing left for him to experience, for him to do, is to be president of the United States. I see him as a very egotistical man. I challenge you, any of you, tell me charities that Donald Trump has donated money to, in which it wasn't some kind of like greenwashing trying to make him look good. In my opinion, Donald Trump, he cares about Donald Trump. He is very egotistical. He likes to talk about Donald Trump. He likes to say his own name. He loves being on camera. I don't think that he has the everyday common American's best interest in mind. I think he has Donald Trump's interest in mind. He, the one good thing I'll say about Donald Trump is he's really disrupting the Republican Party. I've never liked the Republican Party, and he has them all running for their money because he took them over by storm, and they all hated him, all the other Republican politicians. He used to be a Democrat, so he's really stirred things up and disrupted the Republican Party. And I gotta kind of like anybody who all the other Republicans hate. The other thing is he opposes the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is what is allowing so many corporations to outsource so many jobs overseas. It's making it so much more easy and profitable for corporations to do that. He opposes that. And also he is against the Citizens United, and he is a proponent of campaign finance reform. The TPAC thing and the campaign finance reform, these are two ways that Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders actually agree with each other. And Donald Trump seems a bit less establishment than Hillary Clinton, although both Clinton and Donald Trump don't know what it's like to be poor or middle class. They both grew up in rich families. So they don't understand what it's like to be a common American like you or I. I think that there's a degree of lack of empathy there. I have to wonder, Donald Trump used to be a Democrat. He's from New York. I really wonder if he means all of the racist, inflammatory, bigoted things, or if he's just trying to pick the lowest hanging fruit. You've heard that expression before, picking the lowest hanging fruit. You see, it's much easier to say a bunch of inflammatory statements to get the people that are already pissed off on your side. It's a lot easier to do that than to actually go into logic and ration and explain issues with reason, because then you have to research facts and sound intelligent, right? So if you look at Donald Trump supporters, they're beating people up. They're beating protesters at the Donald Trump rallies up. They don't seem like the most peaceful people. They seem like the most angry people. It's almost like it's part of his image that he's the tough talker, that he's not afraid to say what he feels. So Donald Trump is saying all these horrible things, and people are like, well, at least he's being honest. That's why I like him. I don't like what he says, but I like that he's being honest. It's ludicrous, honestly. He wants to have special patrols in Muslim neighborhoods, okay? He wants to build a wall across Mexico. And, he's going to create jobs by building a wall across Mexico. But Donald Trump really likes China. He likes the Great Wall of China. He likes China so much that he's outsourced thousands of jobs to China. Now, Donald Trump says that he wants to create jobs, but he's outsourced thousands of jobs overseas. He has outsourced these jobs with his businesses. So you really wonder if, when he says he's going to create jobs, he needs to put his money where his mouth is, because he doesn't have a good track record of creating American jobs. He has a good track record of creating Asian jobs. Let's move on to Hillary. Oh, and last thing about the wall, building a wall. Anybody that thinks that building a wall is going to solve the immigration problem is an idiot. I'm sorry. Hit unsubscribe. I don't care. I live near Mexico, and they build tunnels. There's already a wall, okay? The wall just isn't complete in many sections because that would be incredibly expensive. But they build tunnels. They cut holes in the fences. And actually, illegal immigration has steadily declined for the past 10 years. It's been on the decline. Okay, if they build the wall 15 feet higher, well, all of a sudden, they're going to start making ladders that are 15 feet higher. Sorry, wall, and you're going to get Mexico to pay for it? People believe what they want to hear. And, the thing about Donald Trump supporters is it's like trying to argue with your spouse who's really, really upset, right? No amount of logic or reason or ration will convince them otherwise. They're pissed off, and they want to be pissed off. They want to continue being pissed off, and they're going to believe what they want to believe. In the end, people believe what they want to believe, and I'm going to believe what I want to believe. But I'm going to vote for peace. Next, moving on to Hillary Clinton. I thought Bill Clinton was okay. And, I didn't have any issues with Hillary Clinton until I really started looking into her. The email scandal, her using personal email to do these classified emails, that was just really sloppy and lazy of her. But aside from that, Hillary Clinton is a warmonger. She voted to go to war in Iraq, and honestly, I have little trust for a politician to have the button on the nuclear button to bomb a country when they own many stocks in weapon manufacturing companies. The Clintons own a lot of stock in weapons manufacturing. This is why Hillary Clinton has been a proponent of sending troops in to these places. Clinton has flip-flopped on many issues. She's flip-flopped on gay marriage. She said that her vote to go to war in Iraq was a mistake. She's flip-flopped about her raising the minimum wage, and it actually seems like some of the things that Bernie Sanders is support, when she sees that they are so popular amongst voters, she actually changes her mind on the issues and supports what Bernie Sanders has already been saying for years. Yes, you guessed it. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. Moving on to Bernie Sanders, I've seen him speak live. I've gone to a Bernie Sanders rally, and I really like what he says. One of his favorite quotes is that the value of a society should be based on how it treats its most vulnerable citizens, right? And when I hear Bernie Sanders speak, I hear an honest man that is not catering to the corporations. He's created the biggest grassroots political movement ever. He's raised the most small, he's broken records for raising the most small campaign contributions. And the mainstream news media hates him. They don't want to cover him. They create headlines saying, oh, Bernie Sanders lied about his $27 average campaign contribution. That was the headline. Yes, because it was $27.43, right? He rounded down. So he was lying. But people just saw the headlines. I kind of support the people that the mainstream media is against, because the mainstream media is controlled by the largest corporations in America, right? These people stand to lose a lot of money. These rich people stand to lose a lot of money if Bernie Sanders gets elected, because he's going to tax them heavily, and he's going to make it harder for them to create another great recession. You see, Bernie Sanders is the only supporter that's going after the big banks that through their greed, caused this great recession that we're in. Hillary Clinton, she says that she's going to do something, but she's not very clear on it. Sanders is against this establishment that for the past 6 years has made the rich richer and the poor poorer. The middle class is shrinking. And Hillary Clinton fails to address these issues. She does closed-door speeches for Wall Street executives getting paid $250,000 a pop to speak behind closed doors. And Hillary, you will have my vote if you release those speeches, and I like what you said. But she refuses to release these speeches that she's given to the Wall Street executives. And you got to wonder, well, if she's refusing to release the speeches, obviously she's saying something that the American people will not like, right? That I won't like, because frankly, if her keeping those speeches secrets raises more questions as to what's in those speeches. If it wasn't that bad, then why not just release them? Obviously, there's something bad there. Obviously, she's gotten the most Wall Street money between Trump and Bernie Sanders. And honestly, the money from these corporations corrupts candidates, because they need to continue to get this money for the next election even. The money corrupts, and I was raised a religion that holds elections. There's no clergy, no priest in the Baha'i faith, but they hold elections, and it's one of the major precedences that there's no campaigning allowed, there's no advertising that you're running for an election, because they recognize that the money corrupts. The elections, people get elected by word of mouth, by their community reputation, by doing good deeds and community service and things like this. I've heard a lot of talk that Bernie Sanders is a socialist, he's a communist, and he is like a New Deal Democrat of the 50s, right? He's like the way the Democrats used to be. Hillary is like a Republican of the 50s. You see the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have both shifted more to the right side, right? During McCarthy, there was this huge backlash against communism, and that was the beginning of, both parties shifting more to the right. Hillary acts more like a Republican sometimes, and after seeing superdelegates, the way the superdelegates and the national media, that CNN's refusal to air Bernie Sanders very much, and just having a negative slant on him altogether, I'm convinced that there's a significant amount of corruption in the Democratic Party too, that the money has begun to corrupt the Democratic Party. And, so Bernie Sanders is actually more popular than Hillary Clinton in America right now. The problem is that a lot of these primaries that are taking place are closed primaries where you have to be registered Democrat. You have to have registered Democrat 6 months before the election takes place. So the independent voters are getting left out. These elections are being funded by all of the taxpayers. So it's unfair to exclude all of the taxpayers from these elections if all of the taxpayers are paying for it, if everybody's fitting the bill. That's undemocratic. Also, what's undemocratic is superdelegates. The majority of the superdelegates are voting for Hillary Clinton, right? Who are these superdelegates? It's not the American people. These superdelegates have 1,000, 2,000 times greater the clout, when they vote than a person in the state. Why do these individuals get to make the deciding factor? If it's neck and neck between two candidates, and then you have 5% of it is 10% of it is these super delegates that all vote for the same person. Well, there's some corruption there. And honestly, these Democratic primaries, the DNC, this is not democracy. This is an illusion of democracy. The one last thing I'll say about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton is that these two candidates are really dividing the Democratic Party, and I want to inspire a split. I want to inspire the party to split in half, because honestly, the two-party system is not working for democracy. If it actually, when you polarize, when you split the population in half and there's only 1% difference between who's supporting each candidate, it's really easy. It's a lot easier to control that 1%. But the split between Bernie Sanders and Hillary, it's a split of age range, and it's a split by what kind of media people are watching. You see, Clinton supporters are more likely to be watching television news, CNN, MSNBC, the news that is created by these big corporations who already support Hillary Clinton. So these news organizations are biased. Stop watching CNN. The Bernie Sanders supporters, they're getting their news from our independent journalists reporting, who aren't controlled by big corporations. I'm sure that you guys would like to argue this, and please argue in your comments below. I'm creating a free forum. I appreciate all of you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I look at all of your comments, and I do like to have a relationship with all of you. Thank you.